And welcome to another regularly scheduled meeting of the State and City Council. I'm going to pound the gavel, call the meeting to order, and would those of a like mind please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let's see. It looks like everyone, staff and council, everyone's here that needs to be. Our law advisor is not tonight, but we didn't expect him, so that's fine. Let's see. Are there any additions to the agenda? Any declarations of ex parte contact, conflict of interest, bias, etc.? Hatred? Anything? Okay. All right. Let's go with presentations from the public. Donna Davis. And would you use the microphone and tell us who you are and where you live, please, and go ahead with your concern.
Okay. My name is Donna Davis. I live at 1881 Westminster Place here in Stayton. Over by the middle school. It's located in West Town, block up from Shaft, off of Gardner and Wyatt, in that area. I have a neighbor that has a drone, and it's a pretty sophisticated drone. It is small, but it's sophisticated, and it has a camera. And I've been getting harassments with it, him buzzing around the neighborhood, around residential areas and stuff. And I would like to know if we could put in an ordinance about these drones and public safety and residential areas, because he could be looking in people's backyards, he could be watching children, we don't know. And I'd like something done about these drones. I called the police twice. I talked to Officer Leonard, because there's no FFA ruling or FAA ruling on it or laws yet. There's no laws on the books, so they can't do anything about it. So that's why I'm asking for an ordinance in the cities, because a lot of other cities and states and stuff have been putting in these ordinances against these drones in residential areas. But it is a hazard. He was flying up and down Wyatt, and he come up about a foot above a car that was passing by. That's dangerous and hazardous, so I have real concerns with these drones inside the city limits and in residential areas.
Mr. Mayor.
Donna, I can't advocate this because it's a real no-no, but you can imagine what old duck hunters would do to a drone.
I asked about that. I know you can't shoot a gun inside the city limits, but how about a pellet or, a slingshot? But if I damage the thing, then I'm in doo-doo.
Oh, okay. Did Officer Leonard say anything about the rules about respecting privacy?
Nope, there's not a thing he can do. Nada.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Well, we haven't prepared for this, but I know we had a discussion internally 6 months ago, maybe, Rich, about drones, and we had concerns, basically just assuming we would have an issue like you're having right now. And I know when we looked at the time, it was pretty restricting. So, Rich, do you remember offhand kind of some of the things that we had looked at? I know it sounds easy to put an ordinance in or legislate, but it really is a much more challenging issue than just a simple ordinance. And a lot of cities are looking at this, and I know we reviewed it as well to see if we wanted to try to be proactive, but it was really a challenging thing at the time. Rich, I'll let you add what you want to add.
That is correct. It's something that can be very, very complicated, because it gets into people's rights on both sides as far as what they're allowed to record and what they're allowed not to, and freedom of information and things like that. So it's something that would have to be looked at very, very much in depth, as well as the FAA is constantly changing their regulations and rules surrounding it as well.
Well, I have a number of concerns with it because I was burglarized the 1st of December of 15. And so I'm real skeptical about anything around my house anymore. And especially a drone that I know has a camera in it, because he sits in his backyard. Right down at the end of our street at the stop sign, right across the street, there's a duplex there, and he's in that first duplex there. He sits in his backyard flying that thing around. And I don't like it. He's been in backyards, he's been in the streets, he's been, you know, all over. Like I said, I don't know if he's, you know, if he's scoping out somebody's house, if he's watching somebody's children, you know. I'm not saying that, you know, that's what he's doing, but that's the likelihood of it, you know, and that concerns me a great deal. Me being a senior, plus living alone, you know, and stuff, it bothers me a lot. Because there's plenty of places that they could fly him. I told him, go over to Regis, over to, you know, their field, or go to a park, you know, where people wouldn't be irritated about it. But I'm not the only one that's complained about it. I don't know if I'm probably the only one that's probably called in on it. But I've heard a few other complaints around, too, about him buzzing around. And I went down and talked to him and asked him not to. And then he started deliberately buzzing around my house and stuff because he knew it upset me. So I was being harassed, basically.
Okay. Let me ask Chief a question. What about local registration? I mean, these insurmountable problems, we can work through some of this, can't we?
It's something we can definitely look into. Do you remember what it was with the registration?
No, I know some communities have done something to that effect to register. It seems like there's some additional legal concerns about the authorization to register, but I know some other communities, not in Oregon that I'm aware of, when we kind of looked at this, had looked about something similar, just as a way to try to regulate them, and the FAA is setting stricter and stricter regulations on them, which is one of the issues and challenges as well. So.
The only thing I heard
Mr. Mayor? Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Counselor.
So I don't know that there would be anything, I mean, I am hearing you, but I don't know that there's anything that's stopping you from taking your own action if you feel that this man is
My own action as what?
harassing you or doing something else. I mean, can you take those kind of things like to court and sue somebody for doing that to you?
If you have the money and the time.
Oh, okay.
But again, there's when it comes up to court, there's going to be the laws and probably the regulations and so forth that are not in places yet.
Our route isn't a very fast route, I'm thinking, and so I'm, you know, for something to be like immediate or faster, I was trying to think of
I
an
understand
alternative.
that, but I'm asking, and I knew that if I asked for ordinance, I knew that it was not going to happen overnight. I'm also with Northwest Senior and Disability. I'm on the advisory council there, and I'm on a couple of other councils as well, and the legislative advocacy committee. So I know that it's going to take time, but this is why I'm asking, because this is something that's very important, and I think that we should consider. And you know, it's happening to me right now, but it could happen to any one of you or somebody that you know, or you know. And I'm not liking the idea this guy could be a pervert for all I know. I don't know, but he could be watching children. He could be scoping out your house to rob, you know, or a number of different things. I just don't think that they're, you know, should be in residential areas. There's plenty of places that they can fly these things without being around people's homes and families and children. And
Okay, all right. And you're not, even as a senior, you're not a duck hunter.
I wish listen. I wish I could, but like I said, Officer Leonard informed me that if I damaged his property, then I would get damaged. So.
Well, yeah, okay.
Otherwise, because I did throw a rock at it, of course I knew I wasn't going to hit it, because that thing is fast as a bee.
Okay.
But, and he knew I was throwing that rock because he buzzed right the heck out of there real quick. But if I got me a slingshot, yeah, I'm sure if enough practice, I'd probably target that puppy, but I don't want to have to pay for it and then end up getting fined for it.
Wear a mask.
Huh?
Wear a mask when you shoot
Yeah, there
at
you
it.
go. That's a good idea.
Got to use some imagination on these things. Come on. Okay, Donna, let's move along if we can. Thank you for your interest, and it's probably not the only concern out there if this thing is up and down Wyatt Street, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if it's up and down White, it's not going to be long. Everybody else in town, somebody's kid is going to be getting one. You know, or some other young adult or
Yeah, okay.
even older adult, so.
Okay, thank you. Judy Skinner.
My name's Judy Skinner. I live at 610 East Cedar Street here in Staten. I was looking at the proposed changes to the 72-hour rule for parking vehicles on the street, and then I was looking at the part that said, yeah, we want to be a healthy community and encourage people to walk more. And I'm here to suggest that 72 hours is too short. I know you want to keep the vehicles that are parked on the street functional and all of that. I'm all for that. But having to go out every 3 days and move the cars around does not seem like a good thing for the environment or anything else. It's just a better way for people to harass their neighbors, which is certainly the way it's been used in my neighborhood. And I would suggest that you consider lengthening it.
Okay. Wow. Judy, these are registered vehicles.
Yes,
I mean licensed vehicles.
yes.
And what, the same ones are asked to move every week?
Well, no, it's if you have more vehicles than you can park in your driveway,
Yeah.
which, depending on how your driveway is interpreted and where the sidewalk is, can make that more difficult, then you can only park on the street for 72 hours. So if you're not driving that vehicle this week, because maybe it's the truck and it doesn't get such good mileage, you have to go out and arbitrarily just move them all around to put a different vehicle on the street to keep everybody happy. And that seems to me to be a waste.
Well, they're not for new construction.
The only way I'm aware of that is an individual that had a scrap business. His trucks are on the different locations, and I'm sure they're moved now and then, but there's no permanent place to park them apparently. That's the only way I see it, but
No, my neighbors have complained about my vehicle being parked on the street for more than 72 hours. Unless I change them around.
And you were told police came and told you to move them?
Well, my neighbor said, either you move them or we'll call the police or we'll file a complaint.
Sounds like you've got a neighborhood problem.
Yeah.
But I don't mean to minimize it, Judy, but yeah.
But isn't that what the ordinance says, that 72 hours on the street and then you have to move it?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just to make sure everyone knows, what you're referring to is an item on tonight's agenda, Ordinance 999, amending the State Municipal Code, Chapter 10.12, which is on the agenda for later this evening. So I think what she's referring to is the recommendation in there to have it at 72 hours.
Which is not a change, correct?
Okay. Well, can we come back to that, Judy,
That's
later
correct.
on?
It is not a change.
Can we come back to that later, Judy?
Apparently, I don't get to speak to it later.
Well, you might ask for the indulgence of the chair.
Whatever pleases the council.
Okay, thank you. All right, Dan Morgan. Oh, that's who they had. Cardinal.
I seem to get lengthy in my presentations and go over 15 minutes. So hopefully you don't spend time with me. Well, good evening. My name is Dan Morgan, and I reside at 2195 Cardinal Avenue up in the Phillips Edition here in Stayton. And today I'm here actually kind of addressing the weed problem and the blackberry problem and so forth in the city, but I do have just a few quick comments that would maybe help to some solution on this. We come from a little town in the state of Washington called Castle Rock, Washington. And I've got a YouTube address on there now. 4 years ago, they started up an America in the Bloom. It's a nationwide contest that cities can enter and be judged on their city. 4 years ago, the people of Castle Rock, there's 2,200 people in that city, decided that they were tired of the weeds in the right-of-way, the weeds in their grader ditches, the weeds on neighbors' properties, and so forth, and they come up with this idea of joining the American Bloom. I'm not suggesting that for Stayton, but I am suggesting that we do something about our weed problem and our blackberry problem or our city right-of-ways. That is your first impression that visitors and guests that come to the city see and kind of, at least I do, sort of judge a city by how the city maintains those. Here are some of the facts that happened in Castle Rock. 4 years ago, there were 38 empty businesses in the little town of Castle Rock. It's a retired logging community of only 2,200 people. Today, there are 8 empty businesses. They did this by placing planters in front of all the businesses. They now have 120 planters that they plant every spring. They water all summer long, and they are beautiful. If you go to the YouTube American Bloom, there's 2 different sites there that has video and explanations. The mayor actually speaks and so forth. They have 105 hanging baskets. To give you an idea of these 2,200 people, on a Tuesday they decided to have a work party this spring, and 80 people showed up to help clean up the city and help plant these areas. They have about 4 areas as big or bigger than this room of complete plantings that they've developed in the 2 entranceways and City Hall of Castle Rock. City Hall used to be, this time of year, nothing but brown grass, dead brown grass. They completely took out all the grass, they put in 2 water features and completely planted it, and it is beautiful. Last year, they won 2nd in the nation in the American Bloom basket and floral design. Hopefully this year they'll bring home the trophy of the nicest looking city, small city in the nation. A Saturday this year, they had 106 people, volunteers that came out to help plant, help clean up the city. They have high school volunteers. The high school has a plan that to graduate from high school you have to have so many hours of community service. And the students well exceed those recommendations or those requirements by starting in January, February, planting these things in their school greenhouse, getting them ready, and then in May, April, May, go out and plant them in the containers and in the hanging baskets. Castle Rock is just now under putting a new water feature, and it's a gigantic, beautiful looking water feature. We were up there a couple weeks ago and saw it. It's not operating yet, but they've had $40,000 of donations from the local people and the local businesses to help out with this. They've had $80,000 of in-kind donations, labor, equipment, backhoes, and so forth, operators, the concrete, all the plumbing, the plans, the permits, the holding tank for the 3,000 gallons of water it's going to take to do this water feature. That was all in-kind donations for a total of $120,000 from a town with 2,200 people. Tonight, the reason I'm here really is just asking the city to take a look at their weed problem and their blackberry problem. And I've just noted a few of them here real quick. I'll try to get through them. On the south side of First Street coming in from Highway 22, there are blackberries and weeds that I haven't seen mowed the 2 years I've lived here. And that all this, I haven't seen anything done to this in the 2 years I've lived here. North of the Oracle Station, there's a large field there that hasn't been weeded or mowed. Even between the sidewalk and the street, there's weeds growing on the curb. South of the pharmacy, there's a real large vacant lot there that has sapling trees growing up in it, brush and weeds, blackberries, and so forth. Fern Drive, across from the Foothills Church, has weeds, and east of the Foothills Church, they have a lot of blackberries on the north side of the road. Golf Club Road is my main concern because that's the main street we come in to get to our house. From the city sign, which is 2/10 of a mile north of Shaft Road, from there to Shaft Road, it's nothing but a 10, 12-foot wall of blackberries. That isn't very appealing to me. If some shoppers, some people are coming to maybe locate in Staten, to shop in Staten, to have coffee or lunch in Staten, that isn't very appealing to me to see that. At Shaft Road and Golf Club Road, especially on the southwest corner, going both on Shaft Road and all the way down Wilco, is blackberries, weeds, and so forth. By the Shaft Road Junior High, from the Bi-Mart exit off of Shaft Road to the warning sign for this 20-mile school limit, there's weeds that are that high. They pretty much all lost their seeds now, and they're all in the neighbors' yards and so forth, but they are still there. Kendall Way, which is the street that we actually go up to get to our house, I understand the city's in the process of possibly buying that big empty field there, but all the way up there are weeds, blackberries, and so forth, all blowing over in the neighbors' yards on the west side of Kendall Way. Junco, which is the street that Cardinal intersects, and I'm on the corner of Junco and Cardinal. The weeds have last year tormented me tremendously, blowing off of the right-of-way over into my yard. I'm sure again this year they've come over, and next spring I'll be fighting a weed problem in my yard again. The county also has a weed program, a right-of-way program, but in the 2 years I've been here, I haven't seen them on Golf Club Road or First Avenue. Why? I would think the city would have enough clout that they could request that the county at least do the main roads into their city. The county would maintain them. I'm even embarrassed that the farmers who harvest the fields there don't make one more swath with a mower and at least knock down some of the weeds and so forth that you go by every day to see. The west side of Wilco Road is bad with weeds and so forth. I'm hoping that the city, like I said, I'm not advocating that you go run out and develop a great program like Castle Rock has, but if you want businesses and people coming to your city, I think we need to start addressing the looks of our city. If I was younger and had more ambition, I would volunteer to go out there with my weed eater and help cut some of that down. I'm thinking the blackberries are more a backhoe and dump truck event at this point in time, as large as they've gotten. So that's my presentation on weeds. There's no saying what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I know the developer of our properties there has mowed his empty lots twice this year to comply with the city ordinance on weed control and so forth, and I'd like to see the city step up and do the same in their right-of-ways and so forth. I'm sure there's several that I've missed. That's just the ones that I go by every day and are familiar with. So that's kind of the end of my presentation, and if you've got any questions or comments, I'd like to hear them at this time if possible, or any reasoning on why the city isn't doing something about
Mr. Mayor?
These right-of-ways.
Go ahead.
Counselor.
Okay. I actually don't have, am not in an appropriate position to address what the city can or can't do. I'm sure that they'll address that. But I want to thank you as a citizen for coming forward and taking such an interest in what the city looks like. That is, you have to know that sitting up here, that is just so refreshing to know that there are people out there that care about how our city looks and that wants to put on a good face for it. So I just want to say I appreciate you.
Well, thank you. My timing's a little off. I should be here in the spring doing this, promoting this, but I kind of give it another. Last year I was kind of disappointed, but I thought, well, I'll give it another year and see what happens, and I see the same, nothing happening this year as happened last year, and the problem's just getting worse, and I'm fighting the weeds in my yard. Hopefully maybe the city can reimburse me for weed and feed, if nothing else. And any
Mr.
other
Mayor.
comments?
Can I make a comment? I've been on the warpath here for 3 years on a certain piece of property that belongs to a business in town, and his business is nasty too. He doesn't keep
Can you,
it either.
can you please go to the microphone, please? Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, there's, over by my house, there's property that I've been after that I think the city needs to take and be a little more, I think, forceful with some of these residents and some of these businesses too, keeping their property up to code, you know, and keeping it nice. Mr. Hanson, I will say his name, is one of them that will not take and clean around his property or his business, and he's on First Street, right across from Wilco. So, and I'm not very happy with Mr. Hanson. If he wants to live up in the mountains, great, you know, but this is a city, and I think, I'm with him, I think our city should look better. And Gardner, you know, enforcement code guy comes around and tells us to mow our lawns, but the city's not taking care of their part.
Well, we have a program.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Keith? Go ahead.
I mean, I'll be happy to look at this, and I know staff will, but looking over the list as I've gone through, I don't think any of these are actually city-owned right-of-ways. In fact, you mentioned the county going through, and Dan and Rich, you can correct me if I'm wrong, quite a few of these are county roads and property, and some of these are outside the city limits. Now, with that said, we have tried to work with the county to address some of these. I know Dan and Rich can speak to that as well. A few of these properties you mentioned are private properties, and I know are constant problems. With that said, I'd be happy to see what we continue to do and to use this list to maybe encourage the county and maybe a few others to be more aggressive. Dan, Rich, do you guys want to add anything to that?
I guess the two responses I would have is the city code as currently composed gives the responsibility for maintaining vegetation in the right-of-way to the property owner adjacent to it. And in, I think, 4 of the 10 examples that Mr. Morgan has provided, the property adjacent to these street right-of-ways is not in the city limits and therefore is not subject to the city code. Golf Club, the west side of Golf Club Road, the west side of First Avenue, the east side of Kindle Way, east of Foothills Church is not in the city limits, between Foothills Church and the mobile home park is not in the city limits, so therefore would not be subject to the city's code. The decision was, there were some areas of street right-of-way that the city did maintain for several years, but a couple of years ago the decision was made to, rather than the city taking care of those areas, to enforce the code and require the adjacent property owners to do so like we do throughout the rest of the city.
Mr. Mayor, I contacted the county, in fact had 3 different discussions with the county head, I can't recall his name right now, and he said he was going to contact the city because he did not feel that it was the county's responsibility whatsoever that if the right-of-way bordered a city street or city road, that the city was responsible to either contact the owners or clean it themselves. I don't think I'm asking a great lot here. I'm asking you to help clean up your city. If 2,200 people can make this kind of an impact on their little town with this kind of volunteers, maybe you can get enough volunteers to come out and do it for you. But I just hate to drive by there every day and see the same mess that we were seeing. It isn't attractive, it isn't appealing, and no one's going to come to your town, no matter how great you get your downtown buildings, how many coffee shops or antique shops you get in there. If it's not inviting, they're not going to come.
Okay, thank you.
Any
You're
other
absolutely
comments?
right. I yap about it all the time, and the council knows my pet peeve with weeds is tansy ragwort. And I watched, if any of you ever drive to Salem, you go under the 22 underpass and around that big swale as you go on to 22 heading west, which is full of some kind of yellow weed all summer. And then the median strips from here probably clear to Joseph Street. And I guess those are that's a state highway, so they have to schedule the mowing. They finally got it done after all that went to seed and scattered. And it looks pretty good now. But the timing is, yeah. The reason I don't like this stuff is I fought it as a kid on a dairy farm, and it's noxious to cattle. If it's in a hay crop, it's just not good for cows and horses. So it needs to be worked on. Anyway, let's move along, finally.
Can I make a quick comment on the gentleman's presentation? It just occurred to me.
You have to tell us who you are.
I'm sorry, my name is Wendy Stone. I live here in Staten on 525 Myrtle, out past the cannery and the A&W. I'm also involved with the Brown House quite a lot.
Okay.
But it occurs to me that the state has a noxious weed program, and that might be something that the city could tap into and do an educational thing, maybe with your monthly newsletter that goes out with the city water bill. I read that. I pay attention to it. And, maybe it wouldn't get everybody's attention, but it certainly could help to know that we have weeds that are not native and they take over if we don't do something about them. Done.
Well, I'm going to start earlier next year and just start hammering on them in March and April and about getting that stuff mowed early summer. But that's my fight. Okay, what's next? I guess we're done with that consent agenda. The minutes from August 15th and the city administrator's employment agreement. Okay, what do you folks want to do with that?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'll offer a motion to accept the consent agenda as submitted.
Okay.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as submitted. Would all in favor please say aye?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. And the majority have it. We'll call that passed. And the first thing on the business tonight, other than the citizens' business, is resolution number 949, a rate increase for solid waste management. And I have to read this before we go to a staff report. Good evening, my name is Hank Porter and I'm the mayor of Staten, and I'll be presiding over this hearing. This is the time and place set for the public hearing in the matter of a proposed rate increase for solid waste management in the city of Staten. Before opening the hearing, we'll have a staff report. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Included in your packet is the staff report. At issue tonight is that United Disposal Service, doing business as Republic Services in Marion County, is proposing 11.8% increase to cover a per ton increase in solid waste disposal fees implemented by Marion County. So a copy of that request is included in the packet. There are members of Republic Service here tonight, I think, to answer any questions and to talk about this as well, so I will defer to them to go into more detail beyond what's in the staff report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions when we get to that point.
Okay, the staff report. So, the public hearing is open. If there's anyone that would like to provide testimony regarding the proposed rate increase for solid waste management, please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record. If there are people from United Disposal Services doing business as Republic Services of Marion County, if they would like to make any presentation, this would be probably a good time to do that.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and staff. Appreciate it. Also, our customers, the residents of Stayton. The staff report pretty much.
You are, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry. Matt Kofer, 2180 Banyonwood Avenue Northwest, Salem, Oregon.
Okay, thank you.
The staff report excellently spelled it all out. Marion County's done a pretty darn good job, in my estimation, of getting the word out for this disposal increase. The conversation started earlier this year in about March. There was an initial vote, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, around June, and we've been going to every single jurisdiction in Marion County that we service and just explaining the reasons for the rate increase. We're all familiar with Republic Services coming in 2-3 years requesting rate increases for operating costs that are rising. It's important to note that this is simply the disposal pass-through. There's no Republic Service request as far as other operating that goes into this. This is strictly the impact of the 29.65% disposal increase by Marion County at the burner. Another thing that's important to note is most people know, some do not, that Marion County is a flow control county. So we don't have an option to dispose of wet waste other than the waste-to-energy facility in Brooks. So with that said, that's the disposal impact. You have a one-shot summary of the tonnage, the disposal tons generated in the city of Stayton, and the impact of the rate hike.
Questions, thoughts? I've got one. Tell me again, please, the single option, we go to the burner in Brooks with that's what that tipping fee is to burn that stuff. We can't go to Coffin Butte or truck garbage up to Arlington.
No, sir. All municipal solid waste, and this is your wet garbage. Okay. All that's generated in Marion County must be disposed of in Marion County.
Okay. Okay. Probably was supposed to know that, but nice to be refreshed. Okay, thoughts and questions, folks?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I want to make sure I understand this correctly. So the only reason for this increased proposal is because of Marion County. So it's a pass-through, essentially.
Yes, sir.
And as you said, it's not Republic Services coming to do this.
Just to honor the terms of the franchise agreement, sir, regardless, we still are obligated to present to council and get it approved.
This is my third presiding over this increase since I've been on the council, and so I want to make sure I understand precisely why it's being asked for. Second question is, are you the only vendor providing services in Marion County for garbage?
No, sir.
How many is there? Do you know?
The Mid-Valley Haulers Group, who does business in Marion, Polk, Lynn, Benton, that area, there's 8 of us total.
And how often do you have a bid for each city that you service?
I'm sorry, sir?
Is there a bid service for each city that you service? Or how are you selected in those cities?
Any help? A franchise agreement is a rolling 5-year agreement, so it's, but I don't know the history as far as when.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions, thoughts?
So,
Counselor?
so that is a good question. So do we put out an RFP asking for who will pick up our garbage the cheapest? I mean, I have no idea. I mean,
I'm not aware of one that's been done. I know that the ordinance we have adopted currently is 895, which was adopted from 801, which goes back to 1999. But I could look and see what the history is as of how we got to there, other than just that basic information right there of when the last time maybe an RFP was done, or how we looked at our services.
That's a question. That's a question I posed last time, Keith. That last time this rate increase came to us.
Okay. So I'll be happy to do some research on it and let you know how we got to here and when the last time we looked at it was.
But in all fairness, all the other providers be subject to the same request, correct?
For Marion County, yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't know that it makes any difference, but how widespread as far as service area is Republic? Are they all over the county?
Yes, sir. We service 10 cities in the
Woodburn?
county.
Are you up at Woodburn and Jervis?
So, yeah, if you go from Aurora at the north point,
okay,
just kind of go down through Hubbard, Woodburn, out to Mount Angel, Silverton, Scotts Mills, Almsville, Staten, Swimming.
And you do Salem also?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So you got the whole county?
Republic Services is a separate division in Salem, so that's not under our operating area. That's a separate division.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. Okay. Other thoughts and questions, folks? What do you want to do with this? It's 11.8% increase to cover the per ton increase in solid waste disposal fees implemented by Marion County. So this is being presented as a pass-through, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. What do you folks want to do?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we would need to close the hearing before the council can make a decision.
Okay. After the staff report. Let's see.
We might have additional testimony.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to jump on this? Go ahead, Judy.
My name is Judy Skinner. I live at 610 East Cedar Street here in Staten. And what I really see is missing from this proposal that other cities are at least considering is the addition of food waste to our yard debris. This is a way to add meat, dairy, and such to the yard debris and actually help people reduce the amount of their garbage. As I recall, the compostable food that is found in garbage, they're doing a current study on it right now, but the last one, I believe at least 20% of our garbage is food waste. And so that would give people yes, the rates are going to go up a little bit in addition to this, but it would give people a way to have some control over that.
Okay. Thank you, Judy. Anyone else? Go ahead.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Brian May. I'm actually with Marion County Public Works. I'm the Environmental Services Division Manager.
Okay. And Brian May?
May, yes.
M-A-Y?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So just a little clarification to what Mr. Kofer mentioned is this is just purely a disposal increase, so this doesn't have anything to do with the services that are provided by Republic Services. Marion County has not increased that disposal rate since 1992. So what's changed that has caused this $20 ton increase to happen kind of so abruptly is we've been able to utilize revenues from the power generation at the burner to offset these increases over the last X number of years. So now that our power purchase agreement changed, we've literally lost revenues of $4 million annually that was used to offset these disposal rates. In addition to that, we also saw some decrease in metal recovery that we were doing out at the Woodburn at the Ash Bonneville. It's about $1.5 million annually. So that's kind of the reasoning for this $20 per ton increase. We're working very hard to assure that we shore up our revenue stream so that we don't have additional asks to come forward. But right now we're kind of getting that steep downward curve pulled back up. So, and more than willing to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, well, I've heard commissioners tell us that the power generation isn't as valuable as it was.
Exactly. That's
That
what that's what's hurt us $4 million a year.
Yeah,
Yes.
the utilities just aren't paying what they used to
Correct.
for electricity.
Yep.
And of course, we've all noticed that our power bills have gone down to almost nothing because the utilities aren't charging for electricity anymore.
They're definitely not paying for us to generate for them either.
That's a factor.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Were there questions from Mr. May?
I have one question, Mr. Mayor.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brian, have you guys stopped looking for sources outside of the county to utilize the facility?
No, we have not. There's definitely some interest from the Portland Metro region.
Mm-hmm.
They're evaluating going as a go-forward basis to possibly have Covanta expand their operation and take in more waste.
So there'll be a reduction when you secure that business.
Pardon?
There'll be a reduction when you secure that business.
The intent is if
I'm being facetious.
Covanta does that, we'll hopefully see at least more power generation from a minimum from the county revenue standpoint. But that'll definitely be part of discussions, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you much.
Would one of you gentlemen take this challenge? What about Ms. Skinner's idea about putting food waste in with the recyclable yard waste? What does that do to either of you gentlemen?
I can expand on that. First of all, I would love to do it. Absolutely, just because I do everything Judy tells me to do. But in all seriousness, I think it's a wonderful idea. I think it's a wonderful idea, one, because Judy is correct. You know, the studies that have been conducted show that anywhere from 10 to 30% of somebody's household waste stream can be diverted because it is comprised of food waste. All right? Nothing changes for Staten. Nothing. Not even the cart. Not even what you put in the cart right now, which is grass clippings, your yard debris type stuff. You simply add your food. So again, it's a great way for customers to have that option, to exercise that control on their budgets and downsize carts if they're diverting 30% of their waste into a green cart instead of a gray one. So I think it's an outstanding idea as far as costs go. Used to be that yard debris was cheaper to dispose of. As soon as you put food waste in yard debris, it was called residential organics and the price went up. Not so anymore. The cost as far as disposal would be no. It would be nothing. It would be, the only cost associated would be the educational campaign to get this word out, to make people understand what goes in, what doesn't go in, and that's pretty nominal. So I would absolutely love it if the citizens of Staten want to go that route. I want to go that route with them.
Where does it start? You're okay with it? Judy thinks it's great. Where does it start? You make an announcement saying, throw last night's pizza in with the grass clippings?
I have an insert that we made. We're actually just starting this program in Silverton as well, trying to get it to go in Woodburn. So I have like an insert for the invoices. Also, Roth's in Silverton was kind enough to drop postcards in their shopping bags as an insert, informational type insert, and Facebook has been used. There's some other things we can do to get the word out to folks, but.
Well, I'm still looking for somebody to give us a green light. How do we do this? What do you want us to do?
We just do it. I do it. You tell me you want it, and we do it.
Okay. So that becomes a decision up here.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. That was easier than I thought. Okay, is there anyone else that has anything to say on this subject real quick?
I have a question. I would like to know if
Can you please go to the microphone? I'm sorry, we have a camera recording and they can't hear what you're saying unless you speak into it.
This increase, does this go on our bills?
Well, I hope so.
Well, as a disabled senior on fixed income, that hurts me considerably, because every dollar that I'm upset with the street fee and that other stupid fee you've got tacked onto the water bill, you know, because I'm a renter. What happened to property taxes? But, you know, because that's $6 or $7 taken out of my grocery money that I very desperately need. So those increases is going to hurt seniors a lot that are on fixed incomes.
Okay. I'm going to tell my wife that, because she's going to be interested in that.
Doesn't the solid waste ordinance define what can go in the garbage and the organics that would have to be modified to add food waste to that?
Judy, I don't know. I think we're plowing some new ground here with this. I'm just not sure. Somebody else have a thought?
I don't know right off the top of my head. I mean, it's something we can look at and see if we need to make some sort of adjustment, if we want to go through an educational route and sort of change how it's all done. But I don't know that off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I'm looking over at staff, and they're all going to be blank stares as well. So,
well, Judy's comment was that the waste ordinance should have something to say about what goes in, right?
It may. I can't say for sure.
If we had a copy of that in front of us, yeah. Judy, we may have to punt on that one for now. Is that okay?
Well, I don't want it to get lost.
No.
Come to every meeting, Judy.
All right, let's move along. Any other comments on this? Okay, there's no other. Okay.
So if food waste gets put in with the debris bucket, okay, then is that going to cut or eliminate our garbage bucket? Why? Because everything else goes into the recycled bucket.
All the diapers and the cat litter and the go in the garbage.
Ah, okay, well, I don't have any of those.
Well then,
Mr. Mayor.
But I'm all for the food going into the debris bucket.
okay. You've got a green can.
I got what?
A green
bucket. A green bucket, yes.
Yeah. The gray one for the household garbage and the blue one for the recyclable paper and the
Right.
green. Yeah, you've got the three.
Well, I've only got, and I don't need one of them if the food's going into the debris bucket and I got the recycle, that's all I got.
Okay.
I don't need the garbage.
Those, in this wonderful part of the world we live in, that becomes a personal decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Dan, please.
And Donna, if the city implements this, it provides you the option to lower your costs in several different ways, some of which many people don't know are options that are out there. You could, as was mentioned in the presentation, have a smaller garbage cart. You could go to every other week pickup because you don't fill it every week. And your rate from Republic Services will be less than having weekly pickup.
Is that true?
If it is an option in the city in which I live, because that's what I do.
we would need to move.
I live in Benton County in Corvallis. And the other option, when I lived in unincorporated Marion County, and I know is an option in Corvallis as well, is to go to on-call pickup.
There you go.
If you produce so little garbage that you don't even need every other week,
I don't think so.
it's $10, I believe I saw that in the packet, for on-call is $10 a pickup instead of paying $30 a month. So if you have only enough garbage to fill your garbage can every other month, then you pick up the phone and call and say, pick me up today, and it'll cost you only $10.
Right.
And so if your food waste is not going into your garbage can, it's not going to stink at the end of the week.
Right.
And you may not fill it at the end of the week, and you should be able to reduce your solid waste cost by putting your food waste into your yard waste cart.
Well, then this raises another question. If I've got just the debris bucket and the recycle bucket, can I get rid of my gray bucket? Because I wouldn't need it.
I'd really like the franchise person behind you to answer some of these questions that have been raised, if he feels comfortable with them.
So currently, every other week pickup is not an option. I think you're going to find when you go into your solid waste code that all putrescible waste needs to be serviced at least once every 7 days.
Okay.
So the part of the code that you would have to amend would be to allow that. Now, the county's language is similar, every 7 days, but the county, when we called on it, said that the cities are free to amend their codes regarding that option. But it was a great point brought up about on-call service. It's only $10 a call, and it's whenever you need it, and it's on your service day. So that definitely could be an option.
And these are all options we can look about bringing back if the council's governing body is interested in discussing, what we can do with solid waste. We can have a more informed discussion.
But
we can have big, long, drawn-out public hearings on these subjects.
I just want to know, can I get rid of that gray bucket?
Well, I'll bet I would go down to City Hall and take a look at that solid waste ordinance, and then I think I'd call these folks and ask them what you can reasonably do within the confines of the city about getting rid of that bucket.
For the food waste, since you're serviced weekly, your yard debris is serviced weekly, again, it's a non-issue for any language you might find about putrescible waste.
Okay. Good. We're good. Anyone else? Okay. No further public testimony. Public hearings closed. Council, what would you like to do with this one?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor.
I don't think we have an option here. It's this county that's mandating this increase in rate, and for that reason, I'll offer a motion to approve Resolution 949.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 949. Is there any further discussion? If not on this one, Alyssa, would you poll the council, please?
Sure. Councillor Glidewell?
A.
Councillor Usselman?
Aye.
Councillor Niegel?
Yes.
Councillor Lewis?
Aye.
Councillor Quigley?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and on we go into unfinished business with ordinance number 997, a zone map amendment for 1510 East Sandy Am Street. This is an action item. Mr. Fleischman.
Good evening. The issue before you tonight is the second consideration and final enactment of Ordinance 997, which would change the zoning at 1510 East Sandy Am Street from low-density residential to medium-density residential. This is an issue you held a public hearing on back on August 1st. on August 15th, and at that time, the council passed the first consideration of the ordinance. At your August 15th meeting, you reopened the hearing and took additional testimony, and when you closed the hearing, the council voted to approve the application and asked staff to make some revisions to the ordinance. Those revisions have been made, reviewed, and approved by the city's land use attorney. And essentially, the findings relative to the criteria in the code have been beefed up a little, and the findings and the ordinance reflects that the testimony the hearing was reopened on the 15th. So ordinance 997 is presented to you for your second consideration and your vote. If you have any questions, I'll answer them.
Okay. Anything for Mr. Fleischman at this time?
I do, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, please.
Dan, can you tell us what exactly was beefed up?
Put my glasses on.
Sure.
Where's the key?
In the recitals, the recital, the second to last recital was changed to reflect that the hearing was reopened to take additional testimony. On the findings regarding regarding criteria number 4, on the purpose satisfies the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Some additional language was added about policy, housing policy number 4. On criterion number 5, I believe some additional language was added regarding, no, I think that's all the same from the original. So I think it was those two.
And it was just for that hearing, it's not for our request for the code itself?
Correct.
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 Okay.
And on the 15th, the council expressed some frustration with the existing criteria in the code, and next meeting, staff will be back with some suggestions for amendments to the code to address those concerns. But you've got the criteria that are in the code today, and you're limited to applying those criteria.
Okay. Council is presented with the following options: approve the second consideration or modify ordinance 997. What would you folks like to do?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I'll offer a motion to approve the second consideration of ordinance 997.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve the second consideration of ordinance 997. Is there any further discussion? Alyssa, once more, would you poll the council on this one, please?
Yes. Counselor Quigley?
I abstained last time. I think I'm going to abstain again.
Okay. Counselor Usselman?
Aye.
Counselor Lewis?
Aye.
Counselor Glidewell?
Nope, I do not feel that it meets the criteria of the vision of state.
Counselor Niegel?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes 3-1. Counselor Quigley abstained.
Okay, we've got an affirmative, but yeah, let's go on with that. New business, resolution number 950, setting forth Staten's commitment to put healthy options within reach of all residents. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Glidewell has asked the City Council to consider becoming a healthy eating, active living community, also known as a HEAL community or city. HEAL campaign began in 2012 with the League of Oregon Cities, and the Oregon Health Institute agreed to partner with HEAL Cities campaign. So the purpose of the campaign is to create healthy and fit communities through options of healthy eating and active living through the community, and create a culture of health in municipal workplaces. So the city is bringing forth to see if the council is interested in passing a resolution to accept the ideas behind a Heal City. I'll be happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Well, I think there should be some comments and thoughts from the sponsor of this. Councilor Glidewell, would you like to lead the charge on this, please?
Well, I'll be very frank. They do a grant that I'm interested in getting.
Ah.
And there are some, I'm always looking for ways to increase the livability of our city, and I think that this is one way that makes us a more livable city, is to, as Judy mentioned with the parking, is to work in education programs to let people know how healthy it is to ride your bike or walk, to be able to do some educational programs about healthy living, community gardens, school gardens, just all of the things that this program stands for, I think, is an encouragement to have a more livable city and to have information and education available to each of our citizens as they would choose to access it or not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's good. I don't mean to sound negative. I try not to. Try to be a positive person. Are we going to sanction people for not getting out and walking?
Did you hear my very last statement?
I thought I did.
My very last statement said that we have stuff available as each citizen would choose or not.
It's a voluntary, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so if you want to drink soda pop and smoke cigarettes and run around in a car, you're still free to do that.
We'll provide an ashtray if you need one. Hank, just let me know where it's at.
We're not going to point our finger at, you're not taking part in our healthy lifestyle.
Don't you know that I'm allergic to exercise, so I certainly wouldn't be opting this.
I'm allergic to exercise. I love that. Wow. A voice from the audience.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us who you are again, please.
Donna Davis. And again, because I'm on Northwest Senior and Disabilities Advisory Council, my big pet peeve is nutrition, and for seniors, and we have a big crisis going on. I've been trying to work with the food bank down here. Now, although they've prettied and beautified up the front, and it looks really nice, I said, why don't you have a sustainable edible garden, to put in there, to hand out to people that, can't afford food or can't afford, so forth. So I've made that offer, and I've been talking to the lady that's running the food bank at the moment down there on this, because there are a number of seniors that live in this area, and a lot of seniors that, we have a big malnutrition crisis going on with a lot of seniors right now. So, and Oregon is the #1 growing fastest state in the United States for senior population. So I'm very concerned with nutrition and healthy and being able to do things, because a lot of seniors are on fixed income and can't afford a lot of things. So I think this is kind of a great, thing to do.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Okay, what do you folks want to do with this?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Councilor Glidewell had me at grant funding, so I'm going to make a motion to approve resolution number 950.
I second it.
Okay, a motion and a second to approve resolution 950. Is there any other discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that we're not, the city is not beholden to anything with this proclamation, because there's 2 words in there that I always like to cringe on. And that says, a city that adopts a number of the HEAL policies will improve local livability and have a profound impact on the community's health and well-being. I'd like to know what these policies are. I heard Council Glidewell say choose, and I hope that's what we're going to be doing here.
Well, Brian, that's why I said, we put policies in effect that everyone will take part in, whatever. And we're not going to sanction people if they don't take part, are we?
Well, that's what I'm asking. I just want clarification.
I think that'd be a little hard to enforce, don't you?
Well, no. Let's get real draconian with it. We just take all the soda pop out of the stores.
Mr. Mayor.
Oh, heck, I was on a roll here.
Let's not get carried away.
I mean, do stuff like that. Take all this unhealthy food out of this. I know no business for you, Glenn, but you'll get us eventually. Keith, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The resolution that we're bringing forward, we removed any language that would put any sort of actual obligation on the city to leave it more open-ended and to give us more discretion on how we wanted to. The proposed resolution did have very specific things that the city was going to be required to do, and so we didn't think that was kind of what we were looking to do or our intent, so we just supporting the goals and the ideas behind it, but not without having any specific requirements.
Okay.
Thank you, Keith.
That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm okay with that.
I wanted a point of clarification. That was it.
Okay.
So does that negate the grant possibility?
No, it doesn't negate the grant possibility. There was just some conditions that were set that they preferred in the resolution, but we were told we could make it our own. The key they want is to make sure that we are supporting what their overall cause and goals are.
Okay, so we've got a motion and we've had discussion. Would all in favor on motion, motion to approve resolution 950, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing no opposition, I'll declare the motion passed 5-0, and we'll move along with community grant applications. Keith?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last May, the governing body passed a new set of rules updating the process for the yearly award for community grants. Your budget allocation is $5,000. This year we received 6 grants totaling a total of $4,550. Through the process, applications were accepted, advertised in the city's website, Facebook. We notified previous applicants as well. The application process closed on Friday the 29th. We brought these 6 applications forward for you to consider. I do need to publicly declare that I have a potential conflict of interest with one of the applicants. My wife is a board member of the State and Elementary PTC. A couple things I want to say is, 1, I don't think I was biased in bringing this forward. 2, it is an application process, and you guys are the final determining factor to determine whether they met the criteria and meet what your objectives are, so I don't think it's a factor in that. And finally, I made no recommendation on what you should do, so I just want to declare the potential conflict, and with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Oh, I don't have any. That's okay. So we have this is an action item. We've got $5,000 in those grant fund budget, and a motion to award the 2016 community grant applications their requested amount, or a motion to modify the 2016 community grant applications requests as, and then whatever the modification was going to be. So what would you folks like to do with that? And the applications are in the packets, which everyone saw, I hope. I see a Wendy Stone signature on the Sandy. Well, you even told us you were part of the Sandiam Heritage Foundation. Okay, that's fine. It just was on top here. Okay, folks, what would you like to do? Anybody?
I have a question, and I'm not sure where the question should be asked, so I guess I'll ask it right now if that's okay.
Well, ask away.
Okay. So, on the Sandiam Historical Society, I think that this was the very same thing that was requested last year on it. Am I wrong? No?
Very possibly.
Okay. Well, no, Judy says no, it's not. So that's not. I'm not sure why I thought that. But that my question has absolutely nothing to do with funding. It has to do with who we funded previously. Do we ever get updates on how their projects went for the year? Like whoever we funded last year, do we ever get an update that says, yeah, this is what we did with your money and this is how it came out?
With the Sandiam Historic Heritage Foundation, I think you could ask.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about the specific people here. I was just wondering if there was, if we had any process in place to actually do any follow-up. Oh, okay. That's the answer to my question. Thanks.
We're going to find out here.
Well, we'll find out from people who asked this year, but we won't find out from people who didn't.
Wendy's going to enlighten
I'm only one. I don't know
Yeah,
how
I
many.
actually know the answer to Wendy's. But go ahead.
My name is Wendy Stone. I live at 525 North Myrtle here in Staten. I represent the Sandiam Heritage Foundation along with 4 other board members tonight. Previously, we have been granted, I don't know exactly how much off the top of my head, but anyone can come and see the progress we're making at the Brown House anytime we have it open. And if it's not open when you want to see it, get in touch with us and we'll make it open. We're making fantastic progress, actually. Just as a partial answer to Councilor Glidewell's question.
Yeah. Well, Wendy, I think that, for me, that's the easy one because I can drive by and look at the Brown every year. Yeah, there's every month, certainly every season, something changes.
You can't see the inside from driving by.
No, but it, yeah. I mostly just look at the roof that I helped put on 11 years ago. Well, we personalize these things, sure. And it doesn't leak, I hope. Okay, what do you folks want to do with these applications?
Mr. Bear?
Although, yeah, I'll save that. Go ahead,
Mr. Bear?
please. Yes.
I'll make a motion to award the 2016 community grant applicants their requested application amounts.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any other discussion, please? Okay. Again, would all in favor, call for a vote. Would all in favor say aye, please?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing no opposition, we'll declare the motion passed. And we'll go on to ordinance number 999, amending State Municipal Code, Chapter 10.12, stopping, standing, and parking. Chief, you're on.
Mayor and Council, I bring to you tonight Ordinance 999 to amend State Municipal Code Chapter 10.12. It's in regards to stopping, standing, and parking. It was recently staff found that there was not a provision in the city code nor in the Oregon revised statutes that addresses yellow and red curbs to allow enforcement if somebody is parking next to a red or yellow curb. And that's the case with a lot of cities, that's not addressed, and so we found the need to address that so the officers can enforce that when that occurs. And we also wanted to allow for officers to enforce it in the school parking lots so that we could enforce fire lanes and such when people are blocking the fire lanes and not moving through. In doing that, we also found that there were several fixes that needed to be made to State Municipal Code 10.12, just to clean up the language in it and to reorganize it so that like subjects were together instead of strewn throughout the code. If you look at the actual code itself, the majority of the changes that I made that had to do with the parking next to the red and yellow curbs are in 10.12.040, prohibited parking and standing. The rest of the majority, then there was also a section that I adjusted that had to do with discarded vehicles, to not allow them to be stored on the street more than 24 hours instead of the 72 hours that all the other vehicles are limited to. The reason for that change for the 24 hours is because a vehicle under the 72 hours can be just moved ahead or driven around the parking around the block and come back and park, whereas we didn't want a discarded vehicle to be able to do that, to have the person just move it forward a foot and say that it's been moved, and that addresses that issue. The rest of the changes were just strictly movement of one section to it for reorganization.
Okay, thank you, Chief. One quick point here. Judy, if I can refer to you again, I understood that these were licensed. This is the part of the meeting you were really concerned about. These are supposed to be licensed and drivable vehicles. Chief is suggesting these are abandoned or not.
I believe that he's talking about abandoned vehicles.
Yeah. Okay.
And 24 hours, and I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
I'm talking about licensed drivable vehicles and the 72-hour rule, and hopefully you can clarify.
And it doesn't fit into this? I mean, this is not part of that same discussion?
Yes, it is. What Ms. Skinner is talking about is the 72 hours. That section has not changed in the code. It just looks like it was changed because it was moved from further back in the code up to or for reorganization purposes. The last time I adjusted this code was, I don't remember when it was, several years ago. We actually raised that from 48 hours up to 72 hours. And the reason we did that was to allow for a long weekend, because there's a lot of people in the community that will have a long weekend or work a 4-day week. And that allowed them to have their work vehicle parked on the street in front of their house and go away for the weekend and then come back and move it up after the weekend was over.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Rich, can you give us some idea of the scope of the problem? Do we have, how often does the police department actually respond to an unusable vehicle on the street? And how often do they respond to the 72-hour usable vehicle on the street? Is this a once-a-year thing, a 5 times a month thing?
A weekly occurrence.
Weekly occurrence for both of those?
Yes, at least.
Okay.
Okay.
Those are both complaint-driven and officer-initiated. And the problem that we had before with the discarded vehicles is that somebody would come along and we would say, you have a discarded vehicle, you need to move it. And so they would just move it forward a foot and say that they moved it.
Just like push it forward?
Push it forward, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Rich, can you tell me what the definition is for discarded vehicles? It looks like it's in another chapter.
Correct. It's a vehicle that's no longer licensed. This is just off the top of my head without reading it. No longer working, flat tires, obviously not running. Just portions of the car there versus the full car. The way they tell on that one is they usually mark the tires. Some of them are very obvious when all 4 tires are completely flat and there's garbage and debris underneath the car that's blown underneath there. Other ones of them that they have to mark the tires and come back to see if they've been moved or not.
Okay. Other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Rich, how often are the guys having cars that are advertising garage sales move along? Because I've seen those all over the place, and according to the code, it's illegal.
Correct. That's more complaint driven. If somebody's complaining about it, then they'll go out and address it. I would say that's not addressed very often.
And people were doing that because of the sign ordinance at the time.
Correct.
To try to circumvent the sign ordinance.
Correct.
Okay. Other thoughts, questions?
Well, I'm just wondering if this would be the time that we would want to take a look at the 72-hour, since we're making a change to this ordinance anyway, if this is the time we would want to take a look at expanding that. Just again, off the top of your head, without without having any data in front of you, Rich, what are the problems that you foresee if we were to change that 72 hours to a longer time frame?
People using the front of their curb as a storage for vehicles that really should be up in the driveway, or recreational vehicles is the biggest issue. Parking their trailers on the side of on the street side versus parking them up along the side of the house where they belong, or taking them to RV storage.
But wasn't there a specific ordinance to address specifically RVs? I thought there was.
Trailers, but not like motorhomes and things like that.
Okay. Anything else?
Judy brings up a valid point. I just don't want you guys playing enforcement because the neighbors disagree with each other.
Yeah. Correct. That happens occasionally. We did get a lot of complaints when it was set 48 hours. I really actually haven't had a lot of complaints about the 72 hours minimum. This is actually the first time I've had it been asked to increase that.
Okay. Okay. Anyone like to offer a motion on this? Oh, yeah.
My name's Tom Peterson. I live at 2190 Cardinal Avenue Northeast.
Okay.
I drive down Kendall Way to get to my house. On Wednesdays when the garbage is out, along Kendall Way, there's a vehicle. It's a SUV. It's got blankets over the front to protect it. It's got a trailer in the back of it. And if another car is coming, you have to stop because you cannot go both ways. Mm-hmm. It's over against the tree. I mean, the street is very narrow. And I have called on this. This vehicle has been there for 2 weeks. It is licensed. It's hooked up to the trailer. The trailer is probably, I would say, a 10 by 12 flatbed. I called the police on it about a week ago. Nothing happened that I know of. It's still there.
You don't know whether it's drivable or not?
Yes, it's very drivable.
It is.
Oh, but it just sits there?
It just sits there parked because they can't park it in their driveway.
Yeah.
So they park it along the street. It presents a hazard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Huh. So, Chief, you're well aware of this one, too.
I'll check into that one, see the status on that one. There is once we do mark a vehicle, there is a 5-day wait period after that before we can remove it. But we'll have to look to see whether the person's actually been moving it or driving it, or if it's parked illegally. But we'll check into it.
So there's a 5-day wait period on the 72 hours?
Correct. Once we tag a vehicle as being set there, then there's another 5-day window after, so we have to wait before we can tow the vehicle.
We're fine.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So now you know what your time limit is, Judy.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah,
No,
yes.
it's whatever my neighbor decides that they don't like.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, go
I'll
ahead.
offer a motion to approve ordinance number 999 as presented.
I'll second that.
I've got a motion and a second to approve ordinance 999 as presented. Is there any other discussion? If not, Alyssa, would you poll the council, please?
Yes. Counselor Lewis?
Aye.
Counselor Usselman?
Aye.
Counselor Nagel?
Yes.
Counselor Quigley?
Yes.
Counselor Glidewell?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, 5-0. Okay, and next we go along with comprehensive fiscal policies. Mr. Parks. Andy?
I think Dan's going to start the show. And let the audience clear out since we're talking something so dang exciting as fiscal policy. Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Yeah, while Dan's getting the PowerPoint set up, I'm going to go through around a dozen slides that you're just going to be at a very high level. The information was, the policies themselves were submitted to you a second time, hard copy, I believe, in your packet. The first time that you saw these were in draft form in the budget document that we prepared. There were a few. Yes, thank you, Mayor. Actually, the document that we handed out to you this evening is a financial report, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But in your packet, there would have been the fiscal policies. It's around a 10-page document. There's a few minor changes to that document after talking a little bit further with the city staff and having them read it more thoroughly and give back any additional comments, edits that they might have for it. We're getting no lights, no heat. Well, the light's flashing. Push it one more time.
It's 3 times, 2 times. The sequence is 3, 2,
1. I'm ready. Anytime you are, Dan. And
let there be light.
There it is. And Andy, I mean,
okay.
Whatever. Okay.
No, you don't need to do that, do we?
Okay.
Well, the purpose of these fiscal policies, just at a very high level, is to enable the city to achieve and maintain a long-term, stable and positive financial condition. So everything that's written about these, that's really what we're, striving to communicate. They're structured in really 10 different key areas. I won't read through all these. We'll go through each one with some highlights on each. But having done close to a dozen of these now, I think pretty much have got this into a template form, working with the GFOA and a number of other cities in terms of identifying and addressing each one of these major elements. On the revenue side of things, particularly here in Oregon, with the property tax limitations and so forth that are in place, and a city government being the nature that it is, i.e. an organization that's providing numerous services, whether they be parks or police or street, water, sewer, stormwater, potentially libraries. There's a whole host of things, and they're funded through a variety of ways, from property taxes to user fees to state revenues to occasionally federal type revenues. So this policy is set up to allow you or to communicate to you that there's going to be a whole range of resources, and you're attempting to not get over-reliant on any given one of those. There's a limit in here on the use of one-time or non-recurring revenue, and this is just a best practice type of approach to, and certainly you can change the policy if you need to, but from an administrative standpoint, what the staff would be doing with this is you get a settlement for $50,000, let's say, from an insurance situation. The staff would not build that $50,000 into the budget to go spend it on operations. They would instead bring it back and either put it towards reserve or bring it back to you for a matching one-time expenditure or something along those lines. So it's not just melted away into your operations. This also sets up that you periodically determine the maximum amount of SDCs. Doesn't establish those. It's set within the policy that the council ultimately will establish those, but it sets so you know what the maximum amount is. From a policy standpoint, you can choose to assess all of it or a portion of it. Sets forth the use of user fees and charges and where those are appropriate to charge those at up to the full cost of recovery. And see, many communities ultimately have policies that are very aggressive in this area to recover full cost of the various services that they provide, and then other communities that don't necessarily go that route and recover, say, a portion. Community development fees is an example of where you see a lot of range of in that. A community like Bend has a very high recovery rate. Communities with a lot less development might have a much lower cost recovery. And this also provides for reimbursable work. Let's say public works crews go out and fix something that's been requested on a street, and it's a result of some sort of accident or some other event. They get full cost recovery, and that'd be total cost, not just their hourly pay rate, but their benefits, their overhead, the cost of equipment, all aspects of what it is to fix and do that work that's reimbursable. Looks at, again, setting forth a practice of periodically updating what those total costs or estimated costs are with respect to your utility accounts and other receivables that you do bill. It set forth that staff, can go through a process to ensure that there's timely payment of those, and that the city you are authorizing the city staff to be firm in terms of the collection of those accounts. Firm is softer language than some of what I've seen employed. I think the other term that probably the most on the far end of things would be aggressive.
There we go.
Okay. This also lays out an analysis of grant requirements before submitting applications. This is something where you've seen a lot of applications that have gone off and they end up coming to the council for approval, only for the council to find out there's all sorts of matching requirements and so forth. And this is to dissuade that from happening. And then with respect to revenue is to estimate that on a prudent basis and realistic basis. The budget, the key things here really is that it's coordinated and directed and derived from where the council's ultimately wanting to go and where your goals are. It's built on the expected revenue and the funding for each and every fund, and where there are deficiencies or funding gaps, that's communicated from staff to you in terms of to achieve your goals. Here's the funding gap, and then the various strategies that you may to achieve that, whether it's to reduce costs in certain ways or to provide additional revenue or both. The objective here is to target dollars to programs that best achieve your goals. Use of cost allocation plans. And this is an area where you have administration and public works admin, for example. And this is something that is done this year, and is to continue to do that and update those periodically. To begin all budgets without a predefined amount. You see a lot of budgets that develop with here's what we budgeted last year, here's your cost plus. That's not the case with how your budget is set up, or at least the policies are set up now. And then the other is to pursue the GFOA Distinguished Budget Award. And it's not just a matter of getting the award, whether you get it or not get it, it's the feedback that you're getting from a number of other folks that review these and give you suggestions back to improve the document, not only from a number standpoint, but it's really a communications tool internally and then externally, to the community. On the expenditure control standpoint, we'll touch base a little bit deeper on purchasing policy here after we go through this. But we want to make sure the expenditures accounted for. That want to make sure you understand that the department heads are responsible for their respective budgets, not the finance director. City manager, I guess at the end of the day, is ultimately responsible, but the finance director's role really is to set up the systems and so forth. The department heads create their budgets, get them approved with the city administrator approval and then your ultimate approval, and it's their job ultimately to manage their budgets. The compensation in what I'm looking at or suggesting here, and it's a little bit clearer in the communication in the policy, is we're talking about personnel costs. It's not just the salary, it's the total cost of compensation. So all the benefits are associated with that, that including, time off and so forth. It's reflected in, terms of total cost and manage accordingly. And then the policy also encourages staff to look at cost savings that reduce future costs. An example of that would be outsourcing bill printing, and that's something that'll be coming, not necessarily to you in the near future, but something that staff is working on right now that I think they can handle administratively, but we'll communicate what that program is and what the benefits are and the cost savings associated with it. On the capital side of things, looking to have 5-year capital improvement plans across the entire organization so you know what's coming up, why it's coming up. These include details of each project, what the cost impacts are, not just for the capital side, but for the operating. What are the implications of adding a particular well or a reservoir or doing a street improvement, et cetera? Do they lower cost, increase costs, and are those accounted for and planned, in the long run financial planning? On the accounting and financial reporting, the city has an existing accounting system. The information is available online. We're set up to make sure that information is current. There's some practices that we'll be looking at to help make that information more current, in making sure that information is available to any staff that may need access to it. I've seen a lot of systems that are ultimately created, and then you've got a number of internal subsystems that are created because the information that's managed in this type of centralized system is not necessarily up to date. And so we're going to look to get rid of all the duplicative systems and ensure that everybody's operating off the same financial information. Again, management able to look and monitor revenue and expenditures, and that's also an internal control feature. Finance director or county staff can't see every single thing, but a department head that's looking for something that can certainly know that something's misposted to the account that they were expecting to see something on. There's an annual audit by an independent CPA firm. There's tracking here in terms of compliance with debt requirements. And then one thing just wanted to mention to you is that we've increased the capitalization policy so that assets costing less than $10,000 aren't put into a tracking system. The city's aware of those, but they're not going through a lot of process to track and depreciate those items under $10,000. There's a component here for financial planning. We're looking to implement 5-year plans for the operating funds, 20-year type plans, and this is consistent with what your master plans are laid out on the utility side of things. And again, it's a progressive way to look and see where you've got issues on a funding standpoint and to be able to address those sooner rather than reactive. Again, addressing the council goals and your priorities, incorporating the master plan recommendations, and oftentimes you see master plans adopted, you've got a capital plan, you've got operating things, and oftentimes there's not a financial piece that goes with that, and this would be to tie them together. The debt, just in summary, rather than go through each one of these things, is leveraging and utilizing debt where it's appropriate, and generally speaking, where it's appropriate is for major capital investment, $100,000 plus, and not to have that debt being issued for beyond the useful life of that particular asset, and certainly not to use long-term debt to fund short-term operating type costs. Certainly there's some provision in there for short-term borrowing, waiting for revenues to be received and that type of thing. But in terms of using long-term debt to fund, paying staff to, take care of the police, responsibilities or code enforcement, this is set up not to facilitate that. And certainly to, have all debt being authorized by the council, and for the city, staff to be maintaining, and or improving its bond rating. Pension funding, the city has 2 plans right now, PERS and an independent plan that's a defined benefit plan. This is set up and it's a very basic policy at this point. It may need to be expanded, or I should say it does need to be expanded as it relates to a pension funding policy for the defined benefit plan, and that's something that we had a conversation with Milliman today, the actuary, to go through that, and Keith and I, will be bringing something back to you, and I think under the city manager reports, Keith will speak to you about that. But at this point in time, the pension funding is limited from a policy standpoint to the city funding its required contributions timely. Reserves, it's set up, I think, in a pretty basic framework. We went through this during the budgeting process. I think these are generally the minimum numbers that you would see in terms of general fund not having interim borrowing, having enough money to get you from July 1st to when property taxes are received in November, and that number is roughly $1 million plus or minus, and I don't have that number available off the top of my head, but my recollection is right around $1 million. Utility funds, you're looking at having 60 days operating cash plus enough money to take care of an emergency, major repair, and that's going to differ whether that's the stormwater fund, the wastewater sanitary sewer fund, or the water fund. And that's something that kind of discuss with the staff in terms of what would they need if they needed to go deal with a major instance, say at the treatment plant, and they needed to get to the dollars now, and they didn't have time to wait for tomorrow. And that's going to depend on the new, the relative age of the equipment, so forth, and something again we'd be getting from Lance and his staff. But I think wastewater would be the one that I'd expect to be the most significant, then water, then stormwater. And then, of course, debt service reserves. The internal service funds, where you do have those such as the public works, administration support, just a 30-day cash type of thing. The money's coming in every month from the various funds to pay for that. And then the contingencies set out for unexpected adjustments and so forth. We've set that up as a 5% type of number across the entire organization of the various things. Management-wise, it's structured to have an annual review. The council ultimately approving these does engage the public through the budget committee process, and all of that can be set up to go through the budget adoption process. So staff reviews it. If there's necessary changes, they can bring that forward through the budget process, can bring it forward before the budget gets adopted, and any change that ultimately get made would be noted and by the city administrator and communicated to the budget committee and council for your respective approval. With that, I'd be glad to address any questions you might have.
Andy, is our financial house in pretty good shape or not? Or what kind of shape's it in?
Well, that depends. And I think, I guess at a high level, what I would say is, what we talked about during the budgeting process. There's, I think your general fund, generally where you're at, seems to be okay. I think looking at the street operation and where you are with streets, if you want to have streets be in the condition that they're in right now, you may be okay. If you're looking to improve the condition of your streets, you've got some real challenges ahead. In the water fund, I think you have some challenges there with the current revenue stream. In the wastewater fund, I think you're probably generally okay. You have a pretty sizable reserve. You have a decent revenue stream right now. But I think all, in the stormwater is in the same way, but I think each of those utilities needs to have what we've talked about, in these policies, which is to have these 5-year, longer looks at things to make sure that there aren't surprises out there. In other words, capital items that aren't being brought forward because the funding isn't there. No one's anticipating the funding to be there, so it becomes something that just gets pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. And, I just went through, leadership presentation by a guy with Ford, and he talked about, the new CEO of Ford several years ago, and he talked about his first several management meetings, and no one brought him any bad news. And they were structured to lose $17 billion. And he talked about how, what do you know, they lost $17 billion. And then they went through a process of gaining trust and so forth from the management team. And ultimately, you started to see them bring forward the problems that they were having that were leading to the $17 billion losses. And they, then knowing the problems, started to address the problems. And I'm not sure, I haven't been here long enough to know all the issues that are out there, but I suspect there's a number of issues that have yet to be addressed. Okay. And part of that is they haven't necessarily been disclosed. And so that's the process that I think we're initiating now to make sure we understand what all those are, make sure that you become aware of what all those are.
That's fine. That's kind of the answer I anticipated, but thank you, Andy. Any other questions for Mr. Parks? Okay.
Go to the procurement piece, Dan.
We got another.
Ooh. Oh. So this next slideshow, I'm going to go over it really, quite quick. I just want to highlight some things for you, and this is on your procurement practices. Wanted to, again, at a very high level, show you and communicate to you what you do have in place, and then communicate some of what we've talked about as a staff team to deal with public contracting. So big picture, the regulatory guidance that the city staff and the organization have is provided within Ordinance 877, and that dates back to March of 2005. That was amended, and it seems the only amendment I've been able to find was Ordinance 959, which bumped up the small procurement procedure from $5,000 to $10,000. Resolution 750, which goes back way before 2005, provided the exemptions to Ordinance 877, and that's really dealing with 877 is talking about the state procurement rules and so forth, and then how the city's rules lay out, and where the city's rules don't cover it, you can go back and look at the state model rules. It fairly comprehensive. I think, kind of be quick with this, establishes the city council as a contract review board, sets forth all the different procurement methods, lays out things you do with brand name specifications, for example, computers, or if there's a certain model of engine or mechanical type stuff that may be used in public works, wastewater type equipment or so forth, or Ford or Chevy or whatever that might be used in terms of cars for things if your organization wanted to go there. And then the whole process, the rulemaking and so forth. The one key thing here is at the very bottom is that the council awards all contracts greater than the city administrator's authority, which is at $150,000. So anything under $150,000, the city administrator and the city staff have the authority to move these things forward, presuming they're in the budget and within the budget authority.
Andy, let me ask you a question real quick. Can we go back, please? Can we waiver performance bonds on public contracts?
The city council may, but not staff.
Okay. I had a developer tell me here within the last month that no one else around us ever asked for performance bonds on property development.
He might be working with cities that I'm unaware of.
Yeah, well, no one else did either. Lance didn't either. He said he'd never heard of people just waiving these things. This person was upset that he had to pay a performance bond. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's something that having overseeing public works projects. It's something that without puts the city at considerable risk. Again, the model rules, are set forth, by the Attorney General. They're set, up, derived from Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 279, and it's really adopted. Ordinance 877 is adopted as a supplement to those model rules to the extent they don't conflict with the contracting code of the city of Stayton. So Stayton's code sets forth really the rules. You'll go to the model rules if you need them. The city administrator, again, has this $150,000 threshold. He can do there's a lot of authority given to the city administrator here, including he may delegate some of that authority back to his department heads, and we'll get to that here fairly quickly. To be a mandatory review of the Oregon Revised Statutes and model rules as those are changed and enacted by the state of Oregon. I mentioned, 913, September 13 was ordinance 959 that was the last update in terms of an ordinance. I think, it's probably reasonable to suspect since 2005 there's been some changes to the state procurement rules and probably something between the city attorney and management to go through and look at these, look at 877 and make sure it's up to speed.
Okay.
And I won't go through all of this, just lays out the different methods, and we can get you a copy of the PowerPoint, and certainly you can reference back to Ordinance 877. But this particular thing deals with special solicitation methods and exemptions. You have a process to do that. But it requires an inordinate amount of documentation, public hearing, et cetera, to do something outside of the other methods that are set forth. There's some preferences that should be given to nonprofit agencies for disabled individuals. Any public improvement contracts, so this is street, water, sewer, parks, etc., may be issued only under an invitation to bid unless otherwise provided. And there's some otherwise provided that you'll see here shortly. So you get into all of these specifics of non-transportation improvements up to 100K. You can do informal solicitation. Public improvement transportation up to 50K, informal solicitation for quotes. Then, as it relates to City of Stayton funded, privately constructed public improvements, this is one where private sector guy is going to build you a street. The city can participate that, but not beyond 25% of the total cost before the city ultimately has to take the project over. That's not to say that the guy can't go out and build the whole thing and get SDC credits or reimbursement. But as it relates to the city actually giving money to help construct it, you've set up a program here to be 25%. Those contracts also, the contractor has to, if they're getting city money, you're going to end up having them have to comply with all the BOLI rules, which is often a reason why you wouldn't give dollars, because you eliminate a big opportunity for savings. And then there's a whole bunch of other requirements that ultimately go, with that. And again, you got the performance or payment bonds. You got the personal services, going through an RFP process. Those that don't exceed 150, you can do an informal solicitation. You can go up to $75,000 award from a qualified pool, direct appointment from that pool, and this is going through a process where you select the individuals or the companies or what have you that can provide that service that are in the pool. And then, those that are less than 20K, you can use any method, including a direct appointment. And then continuation, if it's less than 150, may be continued without any type of competitive process. There's some hybrid, such as design build, construction manager, general contractor. You might see this, say, for a construction of a building. You hear folks that just bring in folks that design, construct, manage the project from start to finish. That can be done. but it requires your approval to go that direction. And then when you get into energy savings performance and making that a component, or you're bringing those types of projects forward, that is specific that it requires an RFP process. Goods and services, any procurement, you go through the invitation to bid or an RFP. Procurement's up to $150,000 in formal solicitation for either quotes or proposals. And then contracts subject to the award at the administrator's discretion, a whole host of things in various types of categories, and just more of the same. And then when you get into emergency circumstances, basically, in general, the official with authority to enter into a contract on behalf of the city, and that can, be, Lance is going to be, that person generally, possibly Rich, when you get in an emergency situation, and or Keith. Keith has that authority up to $150K. The others, possibly, that is going to be a lesser number. And then there's a reporting requirement in here as well, and that's notifying your body, of the facts of circumstances associated with that emergency situation. And when time permits, you're looking for staff to go through some sort of competitive process, and it may be nothing more than just at least getting on the phone with 2 or 3 other vendors and getting them out there, if that's at all possible. There's some federal and cooperative purchasing programs. The United States government, the Government Services Administration, they have various contracts that are out there. The city can go and leverage those rather than go through a competitive solicitation. And then you'll see cooperative procurement contracts that. This can be, the state of Oregon has the same type of thing where they've set out what a computer costs with HP or Dell or what have you, and you can go to those contracts and get that pricing. Same with cars. Also, another one that I'm using right now with City of Florence is City of Hillsborough went with an outsourced bill printing RFP, and we've gone through and used their selection for the most responsive, lowest cost responders to save the city of Florence a considerable amount of time going through that process and getting a pricing that they're honoring for somebody that's putting out 100,000 bills as opposed to 3,000. The informal solicitation, quotes and proposals, the same type of thing as you'd have at the council level, but at a lower dollar amount. Qualified pools, same thing. You can go through that process. They won't go through all of this. They can use brand names. You need the city administrator does have the authority to to go ahead and work on this and to lay out a brand name. For example, you may have Dell computers within your network, and you just want to keep it simple, so you spec out it'll be Dell computers, just to make the administration a lot easier. Won't go through all of this. This is, I think, the key piece. I think Keith wanted to have communicated to you some things that he's looking to implement internally for the city management in terms of what they will go through, and to help with the transparency of things. Again, 150,000 is a fairly high threshold, and so I think the practice may have been not to necessarily communicate to the council when all these acquisitions or purchases were going on. I think Keith wanted to be a little bit more transparent with that. And so what he's suggesting here is that before any items are purchased, they would certainly be in the budget. If they are above $75,000, that prior to him awarding it, so So this is 75,000 on up to 150, that he would communicate that to you, whether that ends up being at a formal meeting like this or whether it's just via email and you're aware of it, with a time to comment on it or not. Looking maybe some feedback from you guys. Also, if there are projects of council and or community interest of any dollar amount, I mean, it could be, the $1,000 community grant you just had, that coming back to the council for you guys to award that. He's looking to delegate authority to department heads for contracts up to $25,000. Above $25,000, those would come to him for his review and approval. And then he provide the schedule of approved methods for acquiring the various goods, services, and capital. And what he's suggesting here is that all capital items above $35,000, and you'll see, again, you go back to the prior slides, those might be $50,000, might be $100,000, depending on where they're at, or maybe even higher. He's suggesting, looking at all capital items being $35,000 and above, using a competitive bid or equivalent. That can be an RFP or so forth. Professional services above $35,000. And then some thresholds here on between $5,000 and $35,000, using solicitation for prices and quotes. And then goods, services less than $5,000, going and looking at those that have previously been used, etc. When items aren't included in the budget, those will be coming back to the council, advising the council of the change, the dollar amount, getting your approval before proceeding with soliciting competitive quotes, pricing. Then go forward with the procurement if that's approved, and then council considering the award subject to the following: the demonstrated need, the value of those services and goods to the city, identifying the funding to pay for that, and then if there's budget adjustments, those getting approved in conjunction with the award of a contract. So, glad to address any questions you might have on that.
That's a lot to try to digest, Andy.
It is absolutely a ton, and you should try reading the entire thing.
Yeah. I'm
give you just a high level, and again, I think the key thing that Keith wanted to communicate is, he's got a lot of authority. That's $150,000 is a high dollar threshold, and he's wanting to communicate to you that he's looking to have reporting back to you down to that $75,000 together with your monthly financial reports. And if there's anything else you might like, you don't have to give that direction tonight, but as you think about those things, certainly communicate that back to, or discuss that with Keith.
There's a lot of trust involved too, and that's fine. That's okay. That's good. Okay, Andy, was anything else?
That's it, Mayor.
Okay.
I think, Mayor, can I just have a couple comments on that, please? So we wanted to bring these forward to talk about them, to bring them out there, potentially have more discussion on them. The second proposal, it talks about where we're at right now, but also, I guess what we sort of described as the internal policies that I wanted to implement. I've talked to staff. We've talked about this quite a bit. Just to work through to make sure that everyone was comfortable and understood where we're at and what we're doing. It may seem strange in some ways that, in some ways I'm circumventing my authority maybe, but at the same time I think some of these things and discussions we had were appropriate and I think sort of needed and also important for us to have some of these additional discussions and understanding of when things will come back and how we're going to discuss those. As well, and we talked about maybe it's sort of strange to bring back something with $1,000, but if it's a community interest item, it's something the council would want to hear. So I do think we'd like to have maybe more discussion. We did present some items in the memo of how much detail we want to get into, whether it's just bring it back to another meeting to engage a budget committee, to engage a kind of a hybrid committee, to invite some people to sort of look at all of these and come back and make a recommendation. We can provide whatever information we want. I understand We sort of presented this at 8:30 after a long meeting on a Monday with the lights out, but it is important, and so I'll be happy to take our time to make sure everyone's comfortable and gets their questions answered. So be happy to answer any questions about that. Andy?
Mr. Mayor, I do have one other thing to follow up on. Sorry. Would be the funding policy related to the defined benefit plan. That is something that the council does need to address. And it needs to be addressed fairly timely. There's the Milliman, your actuary, they provide the city a note disclosure in your financial statements that is necessary in order to have a clean opinion. And in order to do that note disclosure, they need a funding policy adopted. Their request was to have that with a few weeks to turn around, have it turn around so they could get it to the city by the end of October. So it may be as early as October 7th that would be something that we'd be looking to the council to provide their input on. There's some significant policy issues or costs associated with that. Not prepared to go over that with you tonight, but how you guys might like to go about looking at that, whether it's the entire council, a working group of the council that can meet during the the times that I'm here during the week. Your pleasure on how you'd like to proceed. But it is something that does need to be addressed, and it does have some costs associated with it.
And the short time frame is based off of a couple things: the audit that's going on and trying to get it done in front of the audit, and the conversation we had today with Milliman setting that need. So I think I'll be sending something out, trying to schedule something so we can kind of go over that to make sure that we cover what that needs to happen for both Milliman and for our audit procedure.
Okay. All right, good. Moving on. Finance Department report, there's Cindy and Elizabeth's report there. Any comments there? Moving quicker than usual here. Chief, Police?
Mayor and Council, you have the statistical report for the month of August. Everything is in line, with the exception. I would like to point out that on the statistics page, there is, you probably noticed, an 1,100% increase on reckless driving. Actually all of those have come from DUIs that the officers have arrested this past year. They've seen an increase with reckless drive along with the DUIs, so that's where that's coming from.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Any other comments on his report? Mr. Ludwig, Public Works Directors, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, you have my August operating report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have regarding that. I have nothing further to add to it.
Okay. Lance, I asked this question earlier, months ago probably. How long will it take us to put all those water meters on a radio reader?
I'm hoping to have that done by June of 2017, before our next fiscal year, but it may go into next fiscal year as well.
Wow. Okay, the whole
city, yeah.
No manual?
No, we're kind of hoping. It really depends on how much money we have in our budget at the end of the year, and whatever we have left over, we'll probably go out and buy just to try to get that moved on.
Okay, thank you. Planning and Development Director, Dan?
I have nothing to add to my sparse written report.
Okay. All right. Library, Janet?
Mr. Mayor and Council, you have my report and my statistics before you, and I would only say that we are hosting an art show that you guys should, for the rest of September. If you're interested in seeing that, the Lake Oswego Art Show is within the library right now.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Comments from the public? Anything? Reese.
time sits so long.
Sat through two and a quarter hours of this.
You guys do it all the time, thank you. Reese Bordeaux, 525 Millstream Woods. I'm here with two hats on, and one I gave away to that Mr. Morgan who spoke about the weed issue. The FOTS, Friends of Old Town Stayton, this Thursday at 6:30 in the old Oddfellows building, has a community meeting. Most of the city staff knows about it, have worked on it very hard along with other people, businesses, but I think it's really important that city councilors come to things like this, the mayor comes to things like this, and see who else comes. That's Thursday. Saturday, we have a Fall Fest Sidewalk Chalk Art Adventure. Street will be closed off from the Parklet. Everybody knows what that is by now, right? Right, Parklet on 3rd Avenue, to Covered Bridge Cafe, basically. And street will get closed off. FOTS is sponsoring the Parklet and some events, and as are other community businesses and members. So I hope that we see city councilors and the mayor, and maybe the mayor's dog, at both of those.
Off the other side of the world by then.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Reese. City Administrator. Oh, before I forget, Richard, thank you for the pictures at City Hall on the walls. Those are neat. Thank you. Yeah, I just found out who'd taken the pictures today. So if I waited till tomorrow, I would have forgotten it. So best to just thank you tonight. Mr. Administrator.
To go on to what you're discussing, Mr. Lewis was kind enough to take some pictures of the city of Stayton and give them to us, and we've put a few of them up around City Hall. So they're gorgeous pictures of Stayton and kind of helps with the ambiance of City Hall. So thank you for your generosity. And it's 9:15, so I'm going to be done. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You done? Okay, thank you. Nothing from me this evening other than Councilor Quigley as council president. He has the next meeting while I'm off on the other side of the world, so you get a different way. Probably only take 15 minutes for a meeting with him. That's okay. You'll enjoy it. Yeah, look forward to that. Business from the council. Anything?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Quick reminder that tomorrow evening at 5:30, I believe, for elected officials is the CART meeting in the library. I think it's followed by a public comment at 7. 7. Is that right? With regard to the scheduling, the proposal of changes for January of 17.
Okay. Oh, carts, right. Okay.
I'll be in attendance.
Okay. Transportation, yeah. Anything else? Future agenda. Zone conditions for the October 3rd meeting, property maintenance code. Anything else? Once, twice? We're done. Thank you. See you in the morning.